Welcome to the podcast, folks. Today we're diving into some high stakes economic drama where empty US airports and cancelled routes are stirring up quite a storm.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? What's really grabbing attention is how Trump is fuming over these 320,000 missing seats due to foreign airlines pulling out.
Exactly, it's a situation where a flight from Toronto to New York can turn into a ghost flight with barely any passengers on board, signaling some deep cracks in the US Canada trade and tourism ties.
Mm, and that all escalated because of tariffs, right? Tariffs at 35% on Canadian goods like steel, aluminum, and ag products have really set off a chain reaction.
Oh, absolutely. You see, when Trump's administration slapped on that hefty 35% tariff, Canada wasn't just going to take it sitting down. No, they decided to cut back hundreds of thousands of seats flying into the US from Canada, which in turn slashed bookings by up to
Right.
76%.
That's mind boggling. It's like a domino effect. Tariffs lead to flight cancellations, which then lead to major economic fallout for tourism and even local businesses.
Exactly. And it's not merely about flights. Imagine the broader picture millions of dollars in lost tourism revenue, hurting everything from small town economies to big industries like automotive manufacturing.
Yeah. But isn't there a question of agency here? I mean, should the blame be squarely on Trump's tariff policy, or is this a complex interplay of global trade dynamics?
Well, sure, global trade is always a bit messy, but in this case, the tariffs acted like um, a spark that ignited the fire. You essentially have a trade war that's not only political, but causing very tangible economic consequences.
Yeah, I see that. And it really makes you think, what happens next? Like, if Canada continues diversifying its trade partnerships with Europe and Asia, how will that affect US global competitiveness?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The video hints at a long term challenge for the US, affecting not just jobs and GDP, but potentially the nation's strategic position on the global stage.
Totally. It's almost like if the US loses its grip on one major market, it could set off a chain reaction in other sectors, right?
Yeah, it's like a pressure cooker. When you reduce the number of passengers drastically, it's not just empty seats. It's a signal of diminishing demand that might ripple out into reduced production, lower investment in infrastructure, and even hit ancillary services that depend on air travel.
Exactly. And you know, the stuff about lost billions in tourism revenue isn't just theoretical, it really hits local businesses hard. I mean, if your hometown airport becomes a ghost town, what does that mean for hotels, restaurants, and even retail?
Right, and this isn't just a temporary dip. The content points out that this crisis in the US Canada relationship could have long term ramifications. It's not just a blip, but a structural challenge for the economy.
Makes sense. I find it intriguing how, amid all these economic ripples, political rhetoric plays a big role. Trump's fury seems almost emblematic of a broader political clash that's affecting even tangible aspects like airport seat occupancy.
Yeah, it's like when high level politics intersect with everyday economics. You get visible fallout, like empty airports and cancelled flights, that ordinary people have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to ask, don't you think sometimes this kind of reaction might be a bit overblown? I mean, can a tariff really cause such drastic changes? Or are there other underlying issues that might be magnifying the effect?
Sure, that's a fair point. While the tariff is the catalytic factor, it magnifies pre existing vulnerabilities in the trade and travel sectors. The sharp reduction in bookings and the ensuing flight cuts suggest that the system was already a bit fragile before the tariff hit.
Right. So it's not entirely fair to pin it all on one decision, is it?
Well, not entirely. It's like blaming a single gust of wind for a collapse when the structure was already, well, shaky. Trump's decision certainly added fuel to the fire, but underlying trade imbalances and tensions were definitely in play.
Yeah, that analogy fits. And then there's the broader perspective, how this fits into the global pattern of trade conflicts and protectionism. What do you think about that?
That's a great point. In recent years, we've seen a worldwide trend toward protectionist measures that disrupt traditional trade patterns. The US Canada friction is just one example of a larger global shift where economic relationships are becoming more volatile and localized.
Exactly. It's almost as if every country is trying to shield its own interests, regardless of the broader impact on global cooperation, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. And this protectionist swing could lead cumulatively to a less predictable global environment. For instance, while Canada is now looking to boost ties with Europe and Asia, the US risks isolating itself and harming not just trade, but even innovation and competitiveness in the long run.
That's a valid concern. One could argue that the US is potentially undercutting its own future prosperity by engaging in such unilateral moves.
Absolutely, it's a short term tactical move with long term strategic costs. And while some might see empty airports as a temporary nuisance, they're really a symptom of a much larger systemic issue.
Right, exactly. And let's talk a bit about the human element here. What kind of impact does this have on the average traveler or local business owner?
Great question. When airlines cut these routes and reduce capacity by like 320,000 seats, it directly affects everyday travel, the ease of movement for business trips, holiday plans, or even family visits. And for local businesses dependent on tourism, this means fewer customers, lower revenues, and in some cases, layoffs.
That's rough. Exactly. It's not just about numbers on a board. It's about real lives and livelihoods being impacted by distant trade decisions.
Yep, and that's why these kinds of policies have such far reaching consequences. They ripple outward from high level international disputes all the way down to the local convenience store or the family owned diner near the airport.
Definitely. And let's not forget the political fallout. Trump's reaction isn't just for show, it reflects a broader narrative among his base that government actions sometimes don't weigh the everyday consequences.
Right, it's like a public spectacle. Empty seats become a metaphor for policy failures. This in turn influences public opinion and can even sway the next round of political debates.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the story. Now, one thing I find interesting is some critics argue that these measures might actually be a deliberate strategy to negotiate better terms. What do you make of that?
Well, that's a contentious issue. On one hand, some say that enforcing tariffs and then facing the fallout is a negotiation tactic. But on the other, the resulting economic pain, like empty airports and lost revenues, seems like a high cost for leverage that might not even pay off in the long term.
True. So essentially, while the tactics might aim to rebalance trade, they could also undermine the very economic strength they're trying to protect.
Exactly, it's a delicate balance, a bit like trying to fix a leaky boat with a hammer. You might make a dent, but you could also end up with more leaks.
Yeah, I see your point. Overall, this whole scenario is a stark reminder of how interconnected our global systems are and how decisions at the top can cascade into surprisingly tangible effects.
Absolutely, and it gives us a lot to think about. The fine line between protecting domestic interests and ensuring long term global competitiveness, the role of policy in everyday life, and how, ironically, empty flights and vacant airports serve as a loud signal of economic distress.
Exactly right. Well, it certainly seems like a storm is brewing in US Canada relations, and its effects might be felt for years to come. It's fascinating and a little alarming how policy, politics, and economics intersect in ways that affect us all.
For sure, and it's a conversation we need to keep having as the situation evolves. Thanks for diving into this with me. There's always more beneath the surface when it comes to these trade disputes and policy decisions.
Absolutely. Looking forward to see how this plays out next season of Global Economic Showdowns. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the headlines.